Star Fox Zero is the long-awaited next entry in the Star Fox series, which hasn't seen a new game since Star Fox Command on the original Nintendo DS. With its release, it has been met with mixed reviews. Some love it, while some utterly despise it.
Star Fox Zero is essentially a reboot of the entire series, based heavily on Star Fox 64 and the way it did things. It takes the on-rails formula but adds new twists and turns to make it feel more freeform and unique. So as you'd imagine, the story is very similar to that of Star Fox 64. The evil Andross is trying to conquer the Lilat system with his own personal army, and it's up to Fox McCloud and the rest of the Star Fox mercenary unit to put an end to his evil schemes by working alongside the Cornerian army and various allies along the way. Story-wise, this game is nothing groundbreaking. However, it sticks to the familiar characters and story events while changing up the levels, which I'll get into in just a bit. Star Fox Zero portrays the characters in much the same way as you saw in Star Fox 64.
Or, as we call over here, Lilat Wars.
Fox, Falco, Peppy and Slippy all make their return in their staple ships, the R-Wing, all having retained their known personalities. Fox, the cool-headed, courageous leader. Falco, the hotshot pilot with a bit of a superiority complex, albeit is a bit more supportive this time round, but can still be snarky all the same. Slippy, the tech guy who occasionally needs a bit more aid than your other teammates, and Peppy, the wise and experienced veteran. All characters are fully voiced, and while the voice cast has changed slightly over the years, there's still some familiar voice actors who reprise their roles once more. While Star Fox Zero is somewhat based on Lilat Wars,
I'm gonna keep calling it that, and you can't stop me.
it isn't just some direct remake of it bringing new elements to the table at every turn. Firstly, let's take a look at some levels. While some levels share the same names found in Lilat Wars, such as Corneria or Fortuna, they've all been given a fresh lick of paint, and some have even been completely transformed. Even Corneria, the quintessential Star Fox level, has had totally new elements added to help differentiate it from the N64 or even Super Nintendo Star Fox games. Granted, it still looks and sounds like Corneria, but it's changed enough from its predecessors that it feels fresh while still having a hint of familiarity. Take another planet, Fortuna. In Lilat Wars, Fortuna is an icy cold planet with a Cornerian base in the centre of the map, and you have to defend it from Andross's forces as well as fight off Starwolf before disarming a bomb planted in the base. In Star Fox Zero, however, not only is Fortuna a full level and not an all-range mode static area, but the planet doesn't even have the same climate anymore. Fortuna is now brimming with all sorts of plant and wildlife, having a more swampy nature to the planet. I have a lot more to say in regards to the levels, but I'll come back to it. First of all, I need to talk about something important which needs addressed.
Controls. This is the main issue people are having with Star Fox Zero, is the fact that it has motion controls. And the way the motion controls work is by tilting the gamepad to move the aiming reticule on both screens, as you'll come to find out. That's it.
That's what people have been losing their minds over, having to tilt the gamepad in order to aim. But what perplexes me is that they work fine. Sure, they take some getting used to, but once you do get properly acquainted with them, you'll be a pro in no time.
Oh boy, a new Star Fox game. I better get to reviewing this. These controls aren't instantly easy to comprehend, and I can't be bothered spending the time to learn them. This game sucks. 9 out of 10. This game is okay. Ah, thank you.
It's different for Star Fox, but I find myself really liking them. The standard Star Fox stuff is all here once again though. ZR to shoot your lasers, hold ZR to charge your lasers, R to shoot a B-bomb. Yes, it's no longer allocated to the B button anymore, I'm sad about that too. Left stick to move your vehicle, right stick serves as the C buttons found in Lilat Wars, up is boost, down is brakes, left and right tilts, and double tapping left and right does your barrel rolls. The somersault and the U-turn both work the same too. Left stick back and boost to somersault, and left stick back and brakes to U-turn, although now you can press the X button to somersault, which serves as a nice little shortcut. Y is used for recentering your aiming reticule when it goes a bit astray due to the motion controls, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And finally, A makes your vehicle transform. Vehicle transformations being something I'll get into a little bit also. Now, back to the motion controls. It's different to Lilat Wars where you have to move your ship in order to aim where you want. Now you can aim without having to potentially put yourself in harm's way. Obviously, since this is on the Wii U, Nintendo wanted to make the most of the gamepad and its unique features. Sort of similar to what we saw in Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, where the TV will show a more cinematic camera, while the gamepad is utilised for aiming, and that's essentially it. In Star Fox, the gamepad shows the cockpit view, while the TV shows the typical view from behind the R-Wing, and it works well. One problem I had with Lilat Wars is that during certain segments, it felt like the R-Wing was obstructing my vision, so I occasionally found it difficult to see what was coming towards me, but this gives you the option to look directly ahead so you can see what Fox sitting in the R-Wing would theoretically see. I feel the motion controls and gamepad screen work well, but I do still enjoy playing the older games with their aiming, and good news is, you can still play it that way, kind of. While you can't actually turn the motion controls off, you can turn them off a little bit. When the motion controls are set to always on, the gamepad constantly picks up your movements and applies them to the reticule on both the gamepad and the TV screens. There is an option to switch them to only react when ZR is held down, ZR being the shooting button. And if you just ram ZR instead of holding it down, it generally doesn't pick up the movement, so you can act as though you're playing old school Star Fox, but only on the R-Wing sections. Unfortunately, the aiming reticule while using the Landmaster does not move up or down, so this option doesn't really make up for the fact that the motion controls were forced, and ideally they should have offered an option to completely turn them off. Now, I like the gamepad with its cockpit view. I think it's a really neat concept, offering two perspectives, and as I said, in some situations it can be really helpful to see what's coming dead ahead. But for as much as I praise this, I think they took the whole the gamepad is the cockpit idea maybe a step too far, as for some reason all of the character voices are only played through the speakers on the gamepad. Now, the voice acting I like, I've gone over that, but I just find it a really odd design choice, since even when I hit the minus button on the controller to swap the TV screen and the gamepad screen displays, the character voices still play through the gamepad. I think they did this so that if you were to plug headphones into the gamepad, you'd feel more like you were in the cockpit of the R-Wing, but it just comes off like a poor design choice. Nothing major, since the characters have subtitles which appear on both screens, so you can still read them, but is it so much to ask to hear what the characters are saying through my TV speakers? Now, I'm leveling with people who are against the motion controls. Yes, I personally enjoy them, but I feel they were implemented well and make the game overall feel a bit more intense and engaging, adding a new level of strategy, but I can understand how some people are vehemently opposed to the motion controls outright. And yes, I think Nintendo should have offered a more classic gameplay option for that particular audience. Even simply allowing the option to fully disable motion controls would have been a nice compromise, but instead Nintendo opted to strong-arm players into forcibly using them with no alternative, which comes off like a poor business decision in my mind. I'm sure many of you, having heard this fact, will have made the decision against buying Star Fox Zero simply due to the motion controls being the way they are.
Now, I'm okay with the motion controls and the two screens, but I'm a gamer, it's my life essentially, but I wondered how accessible the game was to more casual players, so I requested the help of my lovely girlfriend Claire, also known as Virabelle. Say hello, Claire.
Hi.
There's Claire, she's real.
While Claire plays games to a certain degree, her expertise is more in the realm of anime. She does play games, but more turn-based ventures, such as Pokemon or games like Persona or Fire Emblem. Her main gaming fix being visual novels, so games like this really aren't her expertise, so as a bit of an experiment, I wanted to see how easily she picked up Star Fox Zero, which is a more intense action-based shooter, something way different to what she's used to. I sat Claire down and got her to play a few rounds using all of the vehicles available in the game. It took her some time to get used to the controls, and even now I don't think she has a proper grasp on them. The main thing she seemed to struggle with was the whole multitasking aspect of the game, since you have to juggle a lot of controls. Aiming by moving the gamepad, moving your vehicle with the left stick to avoid enemies and obstacles, boosting and braking as well as barrel rolls, not to mention having to occasionally hit the Y button to recenter your aiming. Claire said that she found aiming with the normal laser quite difficult, and as such she opted to use the charge laser more often as it homes in on enemies, making things a bit easier for her. She also basically forgot to barrel roll most of the time because she was so focused on not crashing into stuff and trying to aim. As for the gyro wing level, she completed it with little difficulty, saying that the main issue she had with it was that it could be a bit confusing and that she wasn't sure of her objectives. Also saying that the gyro wing levels weren't as fun as the R-wing levels due to it being much slower, which I've heard is a common criticism of this game. In my opinion, the gyro wing isn't awful, but it's definitely one of the less interesting parts of the game, being more about puzzle solving and slow methodical gameplay, rather than crazy aerial dogfighting and barrel rolls, so I can see how people can dislike these sections. Lastly, I got Claire to try a level in the Landmaster. Control wise, it was much the same as the R-wing, but I think she found it a bit easier since instead of having to control a ship flying through the sky in full 360, the on-rail sections were more just left and right, which made it a bit simpler. She still stuck to using the charge laser more than anything, but branched out to using the normal laser a bit more here. But I wasn't done pestering Claire just yet. In case you didn't know, Star Fox Zero has its own co-op mode, which sadly isn't unlocked from the start. So if you plan to play through the game for the first time alongside a friend, that unfortunately won't be happening. In order to access the co-op mode, you have to proceed through the main story of the game, and whenever you have already finished a stage, you can then replay that same stage and select co-op before it starts. The co-op consists of one person shooting via the gamepad's cockpit view and motion controls, while the other player controls the ship's movement. Although the person who's controlling the ship's movement can still shoot little yellow lasers, which I believe are a bit weaker than the main lasers. So in this mode, the R-Wing becomes OP due to the tasks being delegated between two players, as well as there being two sets of lasers firing off all over the place. I do think this is a testament to the fact that this game's controls can be quite a lot for one player, since they thought it necessary to make the co-op two people piloting the one ship. Overall, Claire did okay, coming in from a more casual gaming background, claiming that the parts she struggled with the most were the boss fights, and to be fair, the bosses in this game are actually pretty tough, which comes as no surprise since Platinum Games developed this installment, a company who has a reputation for making certain aspects of their games incredibly difficult. Some of the bosses gave me some difficulty too, so I can sympathise with Claire here. Speaking of crazy bosses and levels, let's take a proper look at the kinds of levels Star Fox Zero has to offer. The levels in Star Fox have plenty of variety, offering all kinds of sights and scenery to complement the intense gameplay while offering tons of replay value. Much like Lylat Wars, most levels have multiple ways to complete them, leading to different game paths and different levels, some dependent on the new vehicle transformations such as the Walker. For instance, in Corneria, there are, as far as I know, 3 possible ways to finish the level. The first method is to just play through the level like normal, get to the end and defeat the boss, but he manages to escape. Secondly, you beat the boss, but you fully defeat him this time. The final way that I know of is when you replay the level after acquiring the Walker transformation. You can walk over this little button which opens up a door, automatically making you go that direction, where you'll fight the same boss before he has a chance to attack General Pepper's tower. And this boss is a great deal harder than the original boss, but I shan't spoil all the fun for you. The Walker is a great addition, as it can lead to some interesting gameplay variations which mix things up from your typical Star Fox game, allowing you to be more methodical about your movements, allowing you to squeeze into tighter spaces. I love this because in some missions it feels like you're infiltrating right into the enemy ship to cause some chaos. The Walker is a great addition, but Star Fox Zero brings more new to the table in the form of the Gyro Wing, which I have previously mentioned already. The Gyro Wing is essentially a drone that Fox pilots. It's used primarily for stealth and hacking purposes. On board the Gyro Wing carries an adorable little robot called Direct Eye, who you can pilot separately to get into really small spaces to find computers to hack or collectibles to pick up. You can't go super far as he's tethered to the Gyro Wing itself, but usually that isn't a problem as the levels are designed to accommodate the restriction. He looks as if the NES Rob robot had a child, and I love him. And lastly, there's the Landmaster, which makes its return once again, functioning essentially the same as it did in Lylat Wars. You can boost, you can roll, and you can hover. Although I'm sad you can't boost and hover at the same time, as I used to do that all the time in Lylat Wars. Look guys, I'm totes an R-Wing. Honest. However, in place of such a painful, gut-wrenching absence, we have a new flight mod for the Landmaster. Now, why am I in a Landmaster which can only fly for as long as the boost meter will allow, rather than simply piloting the R-Wing, I hear you ask?
I like you. That's actually a pretty good question.
Joking aside, it is a pretty odd choice giving the Landmaster a flight mod. It's implied that the Landmaster packs more of a punch, being able to crumble rocky plateaus and lock onto 3 enemies at once to fire missiles, and the flight mod does actually feel pretty satisfying to switch between, especially during certain boss fights. I always did enjoy the Landmaster. There are some extra vehicles and fun little extras in Star Fox Zero, but I'll leave you to have fun with those yourself.
In conclusion, Star Fox Zero is a game made for those who are fans of the series. It's for those who want another good old-fashioned space romp through the Lylat system.
To many, the experience can be ruined or bogged down by the forced motion controls, which I can understand, but the game feels as though it's designed in a way that the motion controls are almost necessary. Be this a good thing or a bad thing is up for debate, and while there are a few odd design choices, such as the character voices being restricted to the Wii U gamepad, or having to unlock the co-op mode, reviews are subjective, and as such you should be sensible and make your own decision when it comes to picking the game up. I try to look at it from both perspectives. I can see why people may be turned off picking this one up, but if you're like me and motion controls don't bother you too much when they're implemented in a way that honestly works as intended at least 90% of the time, then I think you'll enjoy it once you get used to it. And if you're a fan of the series and want more Star Fox vs Star Wolf, witty banter and the lovable Rob64, then this game will give you the experience that you're looking for.
Agree with me, don't agree with me, either way that's entirely fine, but my recommendation is to not count this game out just yet, simply due to the game having the big motion control stigma being emblazoned upon review sites everywhere. Now, as for me, I have a bloody top 10 that I finally need to make, so if you'll excuse me.
Thank you for clicking this video, and also thank you for watching all the way to this part. Seriously, I appreciate it. Now then, what shall I try and promote this time? As always, you can find more unlikely reviews for your viewing pleasure, or if you're in more of a Star Fox mood, you can head on over to my new Let's Play channel called Main Quest, where my friend Brian and I take on Lylat Wars. It's Scottish, Brian yells at me, and for some reason we start discussing tentacles and anime schoolgirls. Don't ask why, just check it out, and that's all for now. Thanks for watching, later.